Now we move on to conversations around the election process here. For more information on that, we're joined by Cynthia Mbamalu, the Director of Programs at YIAGA Africa, and Biodun Owonikoko, the Principal Manager at Synergy Attorneys, to analyze the Electoral Act and amendments the country has recorded and the state of voter education reports of vote buying and an overview of other election process. Thank you so much for your time today, Cynthia. Let's first get into what we're seeing in terms of what we're playing out today, and how effective do you think the voter education process has been in terms of what's happening out there today?
Well, I think what we're seeing out is we have voters coming out, and we can't really talk around turnout at this point, but we've seen them good numbers of voters.
Yes, Cynthia, you can continue.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, I can hear you. You can continue.
Yes. And however, what we're beginning to observe is that regardless of the number of voters coming out, we're recording late opening of polls in different parts of the country, which was basically enabled with late arrival of personnel, late arrival of officials. And so we worry that this could be a disincentive for voters, especially for those who came out on time to cast their vote. While we have some polling units opening on time, but our data shows that as at 7:30 a.m., only 27% of polling units had INEC officials present. Why we track arrival by 7:30 is because if you don't have personnel present by 7:30, it means they wouldn't be able to conclude setup and commence at 8:30. However, it's 10 o'clock, and we have reports that there are polls yet to open as at 10 a.m. So already that's one of the things we're beginning to see. But aside that, we have voters who are waiting in their respective polling units, waiting for the electoral officials to arrive for the process to commence.
Cynthia, if I can get your perspective on the Electoral Act itself and what you think it presents in terms of a new opportunity for us to change the way elections are done in Nigeria. Many have lauded many of the provisions, but what's your view?
Yes, it's the Electoral Act did provides important provisions that would enable transparency in our electoral process. I mean, one of that is the deployment of technology. The law legalizes deployment of technology for voter accreditation and result transmission. And so for these elections, the Electoral Commission is deploying the bimodal voter accreditation system to accredit voters. And the Act makes it mandatory that where the BVAS is not present, elections will be suspended and continued the following day or within 24 hours when the BVAS is made available. So what this means is with this law, there is no manual accreditation. The beauty of the BVAS is if deployed effectively, it would limit multiple voting and promote some level of transparency. In addition, with the electronic transmission of results, the BVAS would also be used to upload the polling unit results to the INEX result portal, and we'll be tracking to see how that works. The idea is that it provides some level of transparency in the results management process, especially results collation. So that is one, and I think is a laudable innovation in the Electoral Act. The other part is around the definition of overvoting, because for these elections, the definition of overvoting based on the Electoral Act is where the total number of votes cast is more than accredited voters, then the results for that polling need to be cancelled. So it will be void. What this means is now overvoting will be determined by those who turn up to vote. So once the total number of votes cast is more than those accredited, the records captured in the BVAS, it means the results for that polling need to be cancelled. What this does is to further limit manipulation of the process and limit inflation of votes. The other, and I think that's the third most important part, is the power of the Electoral Commission to review results that are declared under duress or results declared in breach of the electoral law, the guidelines, and the manual, the INEC manual. This is very important because in previous elections, we've had situations where politicians either force or threaten the lives of returning officers to declare an election. And at the time, the previous law provided that once results are declared by the returning officer, it was final, and only a court could overturn that. So what happened was politicians go to returning officers, either bribe them or force them to declare results, false results, and then wait to go to court to buy their way through the courts. But in the new Electoral Act, there is now an additional provision that provides that once results are declared, but if it is found that those results are declared under duress or not declared voluntarily, or results declared in breach of the law, then the Electoral Commission can review that the results within 7 days to rectify the challenges. So for us, that is an important provision, because we've had people who won elections because they forced a false declaration of results at the point of result declaration, and INEC at the national level was basically unable to do anything about.
All right, Ms. do you have a question for Cynthia? Or okay, let me
This
bring you
was an
Mr.
important
Dr.
question on the runoff. What happens when there's a runoff, and how is it number one, number two, number three by majority? Can you please clarify that? There's some.
Okay, we would like to get Cynthia's contribution there, and also Mr. Owonikoko as well. So let's start with Cynthia.
Yeah. So the Constitution. Okay. Yeah, the Constitution provides for a situation of runoff. So to win a presidential election, what is required is the candidate or the party, the candidate must secure majority of votes and 25% of votes in at least 2/3 of the state and the Federal Capital Territory. So once a candidate fails to meet either of these, so majority of votes or the constitutional spread of at least 25 votes in 2/3 of the state and the Federal Capital Territory, so 2/3 of 36 states and the FCT, the Constitution provides for a runoff. But the runoff has a requirement. Now, the candidates to contest as a runoff, there are two. The first is a candidate with the majority of votes, so the candidate that scored the highest number of votes. And then the second candidate would be any of the other candidates who secured the majority of votes in the highest number of states. What this means is, first, it may be there's no requirement that the second runner-up would be the candidate for the runoff. So, for instance, if Party A scores 14 million votes, but did not secure the 25% in 2/3 of the state and the FCT, that candidate would be one of the runoff candidates. And let's say, for instance, the second candidate had 14 million votes, and the third candidate had 13 million votes. However, the second candidate did not secure the highest number of votes in the highest number of states. There's an instance the third candidate that had 13 million votes may have scored more votes in 10 states, while the candidate that had 14 million votes had more votes in 8 states. What the Constitution requires is the third candidate that had more votes in 10 states would be the candidate. I just wanted to break it down. So the requirement for a runoff is that the candidate with the highest number of votes and any other candidate that scores the majority of votes in the highest number of states would be the candidate for the runoff. And a runoff is to be conducted within 21 days. The idea is that a Nigerian president must be a president that reasonably secures national acceptance. In that way, you can't have a president that wins by only securing the votes of one region or one geopolitical zone. At least such a president should have some reasonable amount of spread. That is why this constitutional spread.
Let's bring in Mr. Owonikoko into the conversation now. Mr. Owonikoko, listening to what she has said, I'd like to get your input as well on the issue about on the runoffs. Okay, you need to unmute.
Okay. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. Now, I think the position as explained by my sister does not require repetition. She has captured it in a language that every citizen should understand. So, the point to emphasize there is that the Constitution intended that there should be evidence of diverse support for anybody that will emerge as president in election. So that even if there was to be a runoff, the two people that have the chance of emerging will still have evidence that they are well accepted across their limited regional zone of acceptance. So I think that's the correct interpretation. It is not necessarily the person that got the second highest vote in the presentation that will go for runoff. The person that got the majority of votes in the highest number of states, highest number not as against the winner, but as against all other candidates that did not emerge as the highest scorer. What it means is that if the leading candidate score the highest number in all the say, 23 states, which is why he didn't pass through for, and he had to go for the run. The next person will have to check, as against the other candidates, now we are supposed to have 18. As against the other 17 candidates, other 16 candidates, he must have scored higher number of votes than the rest of it, in the highest number of states. So that's the test.
Yes, Mr. Owonikoko, just a quick clarification on the issue around overvoting, because I think the way it has been explained in the Electoral Act, it does suggest to me that many people may be disenfranchised if vote in their polling unit exceeds the number of accredited voters. Now, the reason for that obviously is something to investigate, given the use of technology, why that should even happen at all. But it does appear to me as though if that were to happen in a polling unit, then every vote there has been invalidated.
But that is so. Now we move from the initial era where you determine overvoting with reference to number of registered voters in a particular polling unit. Then we move then to number of PVCs collected. And then we are now at the stage where technology has enabled us to use a fairly certain mechanism to determine who actually presented himself for voting in that unit. And if at the end of it, there was issue of overvoting, it should only be relevant with regard to those who actually turned up to vote, not necessarily anybody who sat down in his house watching television and never bothered to go and vote. Before, even those people at home who are inert, who sat down and enjoying themselves, their non-presence at the polling unit sometimes can affect the outcome of the election, which was a very wrong approach to adopt. I think the Beavers accreditation test is the best, because all those who turn up can see that they have a duty, apart from the contestant, to also ensure that nobody who was not properly accredited was allowed to vote, and that when the votes are counted, the result tallies with the number of people that were Beavers accredited. So I think it's about the best approach. It's a good development, and I can see the evidence of that here. People seem to have a sense of ownership of the vote. In the polling unit where I am at Aguda, polling unit 15 in Aguda ward of Surrey local government, I've seen people behaving, very cooperatively amongst themselves. And this is a very diverse environment with different ethnic composition. And they are all relating well, and they are interested in ensuring that the election is conducted properly. The only challenge I observe is that despite what appears to be massive voter education, I don't think the message reached far enough. People still came and they were being tutored about how to fold their ballot papers and where to drop their ballot papers. And also, I noticed that there was an information that never seemed to have circulated, which is the color code of the ballot boxes. I think that was meant to assist those who are not so literate. The presidential ballot box is a red ballot box, and then the senatorial ballot box is black, while the House of Reps is green. So even if you don't know how to read, you can use the color code to know where to drop your ballot paper. I guess probably if this information is going around, it can assist some of our voters.